Hello, Fargo course captains. Denise Jonas here, and I'm just following up from the July training that we had face-to-face for those of you that were unable to attend. As we start the school year, we really want our course captains to have some foundational information to help as they work with their PLC groups. So thank you for taking this time to complete the video series and answer some questions to have you think about what you might do as a course captain proceeding forward. You will be compensated for your time. So once you have completed the survey questions and submitted, we will process supplemental pay for your time. Thank you again for your leadership. Building capacity comes from the classroom to the district office, and with your help, we can make CTE stronger and have an impact greater than people will know as we work forward with our curriculums. We'll get started. To set the stage for the video series, we will be covering CTE leadership, building capacity, CTE goals that align to the FPS initiatives, what is high quality CTE, professional learning and collaboration, the PLC schedule, course captain expectations, the CTE leaders portfolios for support, the 6-phase process, effective PLC cycles, leading through a giant voice, and what's next in August 24th. Please note on the screen the initial CTE educators that indicated interest in serving as a course captain. Your name may be on the screen. Well, during the July 26 meeting, we also had recommendations for some additional course captains to ensure we support some of the departments in diverse course areas. So this was the initial list from July 26th. I did reach out to a few additional educators, and we would like to confirm those full CTE course captains for 23-24 at our August 24th convening. As we think about the learning outcomes for today, I initially started with some of the ideas, and it was almost 15 indicators of learning, and packaging them into some buckets. These are some things that we'd really like you to think about as you walk through this video series. How can you communicate the CTE why? How can you assist in elevating CTE's impact with our team? What can we do as a course captain to fulfill the expectations? How can you facilitate the PLC process as a course captain leader? How can you help connect with CTE leaders to advance the EBR work during PLCs? Cultivating teamwork through a giant voice is really important to understand what the 5 voices are of your team. Also, how do you use technology resources for learning? This year we are moving from Zoom to Teams, so there may need to be some additional training within your PLC group. And then how can you connect with CTE leaders when you need support, and who are those leaders? When we think about the impact that CTE has in Fargo Public Schools, I think it's always interesting just to look at some of the easy data, and that is how many participants we actually have in career and technical education. You'll notice on the screen that when data was pulled from PowerSchool this year, that we had almost 2,739 students out of 3,201 students at the high school level participate in CTE. That is about 85% of our population. Now, the question might be, is 85% good? What percent do you think we should participate at? How many students? Should it be 85% or should it be 100%? I think for me as a CTE director, my goal would be is that every year a student takes a CTE course. And so that would initially be 100% of our students participate every year. When we look at the number in the middle, 5,337, that just indicates that we have some students that are taking 1 or more periods of CTE. That could be a unique student that is taking 2 or more CTE classes, or it could reflect a student that's in a block class. Ultimately, what it's communicating is that our students in Fargo Public Schools at the high school level are participating in CTE more than not based on the number of students that we have. At the middle level, we have some required coursework with technology and engineering and family consumer science. We also have a middle school careers class, which is an elective. So when you look at the participation rate at the middle level, you see we have 3,111 students that participated out of a 2,461. That's 126%. That reflects the fact that our students are taking both our tech and engineering and our FACS classes at the 8th grade level. So just some statistics for us to think about. As we move forward, we'll be looking at data that might also include what is the attendance, what is our participation grade-wise, are we having students complete as coordinated plans of study? So there's more data to collect, but this is just an indicator of participation for this year. As we think about elevating CTE's impact, a person really needs to reflect on what they believe as they promote the topic, the organization, or the philosophy that they're actually trying to elevate. So take a moment and think for 60 seconds. What 3 things do you value most about CTE? Write down each value, and then what I'll ask you to do is enter your top 3 values into the CTE course survey that is linked in the email that was shared with you. In career and technical education, we value relevant learning. During the course captain convening, we took a moment to watch this video to think about the nature of the world of work, the future of the workplace, the future of the workforce, and the choices that our learners will have as they exit high school to be work ready, program prepared for colleges, or work in the public sector or military. Please take a moment to watch this video. Fargo Public Schools has had a strategic plan guiding its vision for many, many years. The question was, during our course captain training, is how many people know what is in the strategic plan? So At the tables, we discussed how does CTE support the strategic plan. If you have not, please take a moment to open the strategic plan link and look at the full document. I would especially ask you to hone in on the areas of tiers 1 instruction and tier 2, 3, 4. Those are areas that we specifically support when it comes to our curriculums, relationships in the classroom, our CTSOs and leadership, our advisory committees. We also are looking at equitable resources and planning. That is across the buildings, across the programs, and within our classrooms to ensure all demographic students are supported. And then also when we look at continuous improvement, what data are we looking at or will we look at to know that we are high quality CTE? Please take a moment to open the strategic plan document and answer the survey question. After taking a moment to look at the Fargo Public Schools strategic plan, I hope you have a better idea of the 6 initiatives and elements that will be used to support those initiatives. So you may be asking yourself, why CTE goals? Ultimately, we will set goals that are specific for focus that we can contribute to the overall strategic plan. And looking at the list to the right, we'll start with language, reading, and writing. In reviewing the 21-22 Perkins Accountability Report, Fargo Public Schools is not making gains or meeting its goal requirement. Thus, we needed to create a comprehensive approach in thinking about addressing language, reading, and writing. This may come through some of the strategies already happening in your schools, word walls, technical writing, reflective writing, integrating reading into your classroom, and also different projects that might require some research and writing. Career-ready practices. It's not only a state vision and a national vision, but also our community is asking for more practice and feedback in the areas of soft skills. Career-ready practices with our focus on the 5 areas of responsibility, technical skills, communication, problem solving, and teamwork. We will have the opportunity for our students to practice with feedback. We will continue with EBR, common assessments, and also thinking about what are those instructional supports for success in the classroom. Business partnerships and work-based learning will be a focus with our advisory committees and Lana's work with business partnerships. Finally, our CTSOs create avenues for students to develop student leadership within their curricular areas and also beyond. Public relations is important for us to continue to support what is happening in the classroom and communicate that to the public so that they're aware of what opportunities are available to all of our students. And finally, high quality CTE operations will keep us relevant and also keep us at a level of standard that gives us an opportunity to be proud of. When looking at our high quality CTE program frameworks and also the CTE leaders that will be working with various areas, we want to support everyone, but we want to be strategic so that you have prompt support and consistent support. If you look at this chart, we broke down the categories of high quality CTE support. The very top is decision making. This is something that we are responsible across the board for data decision making. If you look at the leader column in yellow, that will be my responsibility as director. And you can see the supports to the right would be anyone in our district office like Stephen Duro or Dale Vogel, Heather, Lana, Ryan, IDET, CTE teachers are all involved in looking at the data for success. If you look at the next category, curriculum, that is broke down into some standards of 1, 2, and 3, and Ryan will take the lead, and you can see the supports to the right. When it comes to instruction, we have a combination of people working with this. I will work with staffing, and Heather will be working to support instruction. Also, for resources, the Item 7, you can see different names associated with facilities, equipment, and technology, and budgets and state reporting is Denise, and Ryan will be working with curriculum materials. Under student success, which is high quality framework 6, 9, and 10, we have a combination of people working with access and equity, which is Heather related to special populations. The CTSOs, Lana and I will be taking the lead to help support along with IDET and also our activities department and ADs in the schools. Student career development, Lana and I will continue to work with our career advisors, and that just ties directly into her work with business partnerships and work-based learning. And then finally, community partnerships, indicators 11 and 8, work-based learning and business partnership liaisons. We'll look at Lana taking the lead on work-based learning, and Denise and Lana will be working with our community partnerships. Again, everyone is a part of that support process. CTE teachers, you're involved in all of this work, but again, the lead and then next layers of support are what is listed on this chart. Growing CTE leadership capacity is critical to have an impact. We cannot do it alone. We must do it together. We are the team. So, course captains, thank you so much for your willingness to step up and to be the conduit and the leadership in the building to help move ideas forward or bring up requests for solutions so that we can make sure that we support each other as a team. The course captain protocols will be discussed in a few minutes, but I would like you to take a moment to click on the link in the survey and review this course captain job description for CTE. As a course captain or as an educator, we all are discussing time to learn and time to be together. Fargo Public Schools has definitely invested in time this year in many ways. First of all, we are providing the course captain training, whether it was in face-to-face or asynchronously, to help you think about some ideas and get your mindset of what we are thinking about for goals for the 23-24 school year. We also know that at the opener, we have time for our CT departments to get together in August. And then also throughout the year, we have CTE course alikes either on Tuesdays and Thursday morning for high schools or on Wednesday after school for our middle school teams. There's also a unique experience this year with 4 early outs. And then also we'll provide a couple of course captain update sessions in the morning for semester 1 and semester 2. When we look at the total amount of time, which is always the #1 request from educators, we roughly, depending on the days that we're convening, have around 45.5 hours of time for CTE, which is almost a week to discuss topics this year. We also have approximately 29 hours is in that 45 hours of our time. So I think as a course captain, how can we leverage the time we do have to have the most impact with our CTE departments? As a course captain, one of the things that I am asking you to think about is mapping out ideas for your PLC time. I know that it can be challenging to create a map for the whole year because you will need to be reflective of your current goals for the week or the month and your unit of implementation and the topic you need to discuss for your PLC. But we're asking you to be thoughtful about the PLC cycle, making sure you have set norms and understand what critical content you want to focus on, and then thinking about, in my first meeting, what is my agenda? And when you finish the agenda, setting goals for the next convening. And so that you can think about, in that PLC process, what am I going to determine for my unit of study and assessment? And maybe I'll answer question 1 and 2. And then the next week, we'll come back to questions 3, 4, and 5 so that we can discuss. And then the next week, we may need to set the date to set up our questions 1 and 2 again to determine our unit of study. This will vary based on departments and courses. So we want you as course captains to have the flexibility to lead that process with input from your team.
purpose of PLC is to impact learning. Collaborating develops collective efficacy as we learn and problem solve together. Many of us are already familiar with the questions, what do we want students to know and be able to do? How will we know if they've learned it? What will we do if they already know it? And how will we respond when students don't learn? Now, PLC Plus adds a fifth question, who benefited from instruction and who did not? Next, I'll share a video with you that explains what this looks like.
You may be asking yourself, what is question 5? We've always only had 4 questions in the PLC process. So what is the difference between PLC versus PLC Plus? As you watch the video, please write down key takeaways for the survey response. Question 5 is really about the supports needed for our special populations to ensure equity as we think about students and their learning needs, and the resources to support them. In career and technical education, we have always been supportive of diverse populations in the areas of individuals with disabilities, economically disadvantaged, English learners, single parents, homeless individuals, youth that are in foster care systems, youth with a parent as a member of the armed forces or on active duty, and then non-traditional students. I think what is important to know is that some of this information is easily accessible through our counselors or special education departments and MTSS. But there is information or individuals on this list that might be challenging to collect, such as a student's status in their home, if they have a home, or if they're a student that might be transitioning from one household to another. That could be a person that you may hear about as an educator that could be considered homeless, but is not identified as homeless because that can be very sensitive for a student. What we're asking you as CTE educators is to always know and understand the special populations that we serve, and to also be listening for those students that may not be clearly identified but may be in need of supports. Those students would be important to tap into with resources through Heather Sinkler, as she would then be able to connect you to others in the building for more services. As you work with the special population students and all learners in your classroom, sometimes as educators we are challenged by finding the right strategy that fits the right student for the right reasons and the right unit of a study. Fargo Public Schools and the Teaching and Learning Department team has put together a tremendous resource that combines ideas and strategies in a playbook. You have maybe heard of the playbook, maybe some of you have actually worked in the playbook, but it's very voluminous and sometimes time is limited. What we want you to do as course captains is to understand that the FPS instructional playbook is available, and as you work through the PLC process or you're working with your colleagues and you run into challenging situations in which you need resources or support in your classroom or new ideas to engage learners, that you would lean on this instructional playbook as a team to identify some ideas that might help move you. Sometimes we get stuck in our ways, and this can be very helpful for you to review and think about ideas to help your teachers and also support your curriculum for all of the students in your classrooms. As a PLC course captain, sometimes working with colleagues can be such a celebration, and then along the way you can meet challenges, whether that's because of philosophical differences or people are tired or the work is challenging. So one thing you might want to consider is just thinking about the characteristics of a high functioning PLC. You'll notice on the screen there is an effective PLC leader checklist that can help you think about what does it look like to be a good PLC. This is available on the PLC resource site, and we will share that with you through the employee portal. And you can take a moment by yourself or with your team to just walk through and say, are we a good PLC? Do we have the structures in place? Do we have support? Do we have a vision? Are we intentional about our learning? Are we supporting our peers? And are we being supported by leadership? I would encourage you to take a moment to look at this as a course captain, and this is something you can share, or this is something that you can just use as a resource to help you in your work. Another resource is also on the next page with your agenda. I think we've all been a part of a meeting that's gone so smooth that you are so productive, you walk away feeling really good. And then we've had those meetings where we sit and spin and we cannot stay on topic. And so here's an example of another CTE PLC agenda that Heather pulled together that aligns with some of the district work through PLC Plus process and also aligns with our strategic goals for Tier 1 instruction. If you do not have something available, I would encourage you to just use this as a template. It has the 5 questions involved. It also has a layout for somebody to facilitate, a note taker, a timekeeper to keep everyone on track. And it also has areas that you can identify your focus for your work for the week, and then to-do lists and action items. Hopefully this outline will help you stay in a rhythm for that PLC cycle and be productive from one week to the next. In 23-24, Fargo Public Schools will be moving from Zoom technology to Teams to schedule any kind of virtual meetings. And so at this time, things to consider, are you comfortable with using Teams and how to schedule a meeting? If you are, that's fantastic. There's 3 ways to do it: through the Outlook app, through the Teams app, or online through Office 365 Teams. If you are struggling and you need assistance with setting this up, please feel free to reach out to Ryan, myself, Lana, Heather, and we can support you through that process. Things to think about and things to help remind each other. Contribute to the meeting agenda, be an active listener, limit distractions, take on a meeting role, be on time for the meeting, provide meeting feedback, follow proper etiquette, ensure that someone is taking meeting notes. When you're on a virtual meeting, I think one of the things we're struggling with at times is people may be distracted in their classrooms. And so maintaining eye contact or having a norm that everyone is on their video camera, not moving around the room because that can be distracting to the people on the other end. Those are some things you might want to consider in a good virtual environment. Make sure that you are able to share in the chat box so that people know. Think about recording and agreeing upon that in advance so that if students or teachers aren't available to attend, they can watch the meeting later. One topic that we covered at the course captain meeting that's a little more in depth for course captains is the 6-phase process of the EBR cycle. Some schools have really focused on this and others have not, but what we are using this as is a framework for us to focus on the work when it comes to that EBR process and how does it fit in. We want course captains to make sure that they know what the EBR process is, and so phase 1 is setting the foundation for EBR, phase 2 is focusing on the common assessment, phase 3 is implementation, 4, scaffolding and differentiation, phase 5, that reporting with grades, and phase 6, how do you revisit, revise, and recommit. We did hear in our course captain meeting the other day, for those of you that weren't present, is that we spend a lot of time living in phase 1, 2, and 6. And sometimes we're not getting to phases 3, 4, and 5. And again, those are based on the 5 questions of the PLC process. So this year as a course captain, please think about using this as a way to move your team forward in the thinking of EBR and the PLC process. As a CTE leader team, one of the areas we were struggling just a little bit with was who's in charge of what in the phase process, because it does happen over time with multiple inputs and collaborative groups. And what we did try to do is use a decision-making model to help us maybe think through how this could work. If you'll notice, the DRIVE acronym stands for Decide, Recommend, Input, Veto, and Execute. When you look at phase 1, we were trying to decide where does it stop and start, who organizes these events, because sometimes we were actually not able to support everyone efficiently, or there was confusion and we actually dropped the ball. So what we've done is laid out examples of phase 1, course enduring skills and proficiency scales. The decide or the lead would be the curriculum coordinator. Recommendations may come through the coaches. The teachers have input. The cabinet, district level, is the only people that can veto some of our information. And then who executes? The curriculum team. And as we went through this whole process, we get to common assessments. The first question is, common formative assessments are aligned with proficiency scales and success criteria. Who really decides that? Really the teacher team. Who can recommend? Probably the coach or the curriculum. Input is curriculum. Veto, we left that blank for right now to think about who might have the capacity to say, no, we will not work through that and not use that assessment. So we've left that blank. And then who executes? The teacher team. I won't read all of these, but I wanted you to think about, as you move through the phases, when you get down to phase 6, you can see revisit the previous phases. It's listed as the course captain. And there's parts of this work, again, that are teacher-led, some are curriculum coordinator-led, and others might be the instructional coach like Heather. So use this as a guide to think about where we might move forward with decisions and coordination of the process. As course captains and CTE educators, we will continue to use the employee portal, the CTE department page, to share information. This is a place where most everyone goes to complete requisitions. So we are going to put spotlight news information out on this site. And you can also see that information related to important links will be here. There are so many ways to access information at Fargo Public Schools that once in a while it is challenging to keep up with where everything's located. So for the next series of information, you can see the curriculum website is located out here along with the PLC resources for meetings. So please use this as your landing page for CTE resources. During the upcoming August workshop days, there'll be some work with EBR, and Ryan will be leading the work with the 6-phase process to help people just go through and map out where they're at with their department and their courses to help just get a mindset for where we're at and what work is left to do around this topic. As we work through the career ready practices at the high school level, we had discussions about which CRPs are supported in courses, ideas about how to map the CRPs. For some of our courses, it might not be appropriate to look at all of the CRPs because it's an introductory level course. But as we get to our cooperative work experience or courses that are considered advanced in the pathway, we might want to make sure that we're focusing on all the big 5 of responsible employee and the area of technical skills, communication, problem solving, and teamwork. But this is something that will happen with EBR work and can be discussed during curriculum writing and then follow up through PLCs. For some of you, the map that we were talking about looks a little bit like this. Again, there's many indicators, and so we're trying to make it relevant related to the skills, and this could be utilized differently, but we're trying to be somewhat consistent through each of the departments as we map out where they're actually being taught and assessed. Ultimately, the impact on CTE comes from this group. The teachers in the classroom, the career advisors, the counselors, and then when that is done well, we connect with our principals, superintendents, school board members, legislators, and people respect the work that is happening because our students are successful. So thank you to everyone. But we also know we have new team members this year. This is 1 year later. And so we'll be working to update our information and get to know the new voices in our CTE team. As a director and a connector as my primary voice, it is really important to me to create teamwork. I was in athletics. We had some great talented teams, but because they didn't work as a team, our results weren't as good as they should have been. And then one year we had a group of basketball players that were playing. They didn't have the most talent, but because we worked so hard as a team, we actually had better results than the team with talent. What I really want us to think about is the 5 voices and what talent people bring to the team. Doesn't mean we always agree, doesn't mean we always aren't annoyed, but it does mean we celebrate the talent and we think about, as a course captain, how do we navigate around the 5 voices. So creating teamwork and a sense of belonging, just like we want to do with our students through relationships, is what matters. And how can we inspire people? How can we empower people? How can I inspire you? How can I empower you? Those are the things that I'll continue to think about as a CTE director. This year, when we were attending some work with the All for One initiative, our new educational justice director, Tristan Love, presented an outline of what it means to belong. And then as a leadership team, we are also reading a book called Trust and Inspire. And it's really helping us release empowering aspects and decision making back to our educators, not to overwhelm them, but to know that we trust them. And so that's a mindset that we're going to work through in the next few years. So when you think about what is belonging, it's meaning feeling accepted for your talent, and also accepted that you have potential growth. Maybe you're not there yet. Being respected, that my individual voice as connector is my voice. Sometimes that has good aspects, sometimes there's not. But how does that relate to the guardian? How does that relate to the nurturer, the pioneer, and the creative? What is the purpose for each of our voices? Being included because I'm my authentic self. Sometimes I might have a good comment and sometimes it might be quirky, but being understanding and forgiving and giving people grace. And then having humility, sometimes you might be right, but how can we work together, be humble, be hungry, and work together as a team? And finally, supported. We have lives, we have families, and sometimes things are tough. Sometimes we struggle because work is hard, and sometimes we just want to celebrate. So how can we be caring and supportive, and then always being responsible to the team? How do we contribute? How do we get everyone to contribute? I think the one thing we can do is inspire people, support people, and then create a sense of trust. Just remember that people are trying to do their very best, and sometimes they're just still learning. They're just maybe an older learner, and we have to help them get through those challenging times and celebrate the wins. So thinking about creating a team through trust and belonging is really important. We are going to continue the work of the 5 voices, and how might your primary voice impact the dynamics as a captain, thinking about what your tendencies are, what your triggers are, how voices interact. But then also, if you think about the voice dynamic when you're working with your group, there may be times when you need to hear from the nurturer first, then the creative, then the guardian, then the connector, then the pioneer. And at times you might say, you know what, we're just going to put this aside as our rules of engagement for conversation, because sometimes the nurturer just gets tired of going first. But as a course captain, can you think about the strategies based on the 5 voices? And I will be asking our new people to complete the assessment of the 5 voices. As a course captain, you are the leader in that PLC group. How can you build capacity? The first thing is knowing yourself to lead yourself, knowing your voice, knowing your tendencies, and then how do those tendencies create patterns that may make you feel defensive at times, or they might make you happy at times, or sometimes the creativity in your mind might get you off track, and how do you pull back and organize your thoughts? So knowing yourself to lead yourself is really understanding your voice, understanding those triggers, and then what do you do to take action to help yourself and help others in the teamwork process. Once you know the voices, I think it's also important to know that there are some nemesis voices. If you look at the chart to the right, you can see that at the top is decision making based on people and values. At the bottom is decision making made on systems and logic. To the right are people that are future oriented in processing their thinking, and to the left are processing that are present orientated. And when you look at how the voices interact with each other, on the top side, you'll see that the connector and the creative are future thinkers. They might be living in what's the next idea, what's the next dream, where your nurture is thinking about what's happening right now, but both of them are thinking about the people and values as they make decisions. When you look toward the bottom of the decision-making systems and logic, you'll see the pioneer and the creative are again out on the future-orientated side, and then the guardian is on the present-orientated side. That means that the guardian is really going to be living right now and what's the logic in the system to happen and must be in place for this to happen, where the pioneer and the creative, they might be thinking of the future with some systems. Keep this in mind as you work with your colleagues, because this could be the voices that start to have conflict with each other. I am a connector. My guardian is my nemesis voice, yet I need that voice because they are the person that will help think through those tough questions to help me stay in line and also to set up a better plan. Think about that as you work forward with your team this year. As we create a trust and inspire organization, the most important thing is to think about how we contribute the subculture. I know in my work, there's days that I'm excited about what's happening and I so appreciate the collaboration. And then once in a while, decisions are made and maybe we were left behind on that conversation, and that can break down trust. It might not be intentional. It might have been just about timing. It might have been a decision had to be made and there wasn't time to talk to everyone to get input. But as teachers, leaders, and as myself as a director, leader, we all are a part of the whole organization, and we're also a part of the subculture of the organization. And so if we can think about that everyone is really trying to do their job with their best ability and that their intentions are good, we can think about how do we contribute to the subculture. I know that when times are frustrating, the subculture can break down, whether it's at the classroom level or at the director level or at the community level, and that when that starts to fall apart, the organization struggles. And so thinking again of everyone is trying to do their very best. No one wants to screw up. Everyone's intention is good, but sometimes maybe they're just caught up in the moment or the timeline to get things done and things happen. So I hope that as we work forward with course captains that you understand that we want to be here for you as leaders. I want to be here to support you. We want you to know about the decisions, but sometimes people will send out an email that we're not aware of, and then all of a sudden now we're fielding questions. We will do our very best to stay ahead of it. We want you to be in a leadership capacity. We want you to build capacity with your own team and have a great year. So thank you for all you're doing, and we will look forward to the next set of work and discussions that we will have with you. As a course captain, consider the 5 voices and please complete these questions in the survey to get us started for the school year. When we were at the July convening, we asked our course captains for some next step items. That was, how can we support you in your success as a course captain? What do you feel our focus should be for August 24th, which we've kind of defined already, but we will have some opportunity for you to have input along the way on early out days and what we want to do for course captains as far as our PLCs and how we enter the links and have our semester 1 and semester 2 meeting. So please take a moment to finish the exit survey as we end this asynchronous training session. Thank you again for completing the asynchronous training for 23-24 CTE course captains. You also have an exit survey in your asynchronous training module that we would ask you to complete so we have feedback for the year. We so appreciate you. We appreciate the time you're committing to this work, and we look forward to supporting you as a course captain for the 23-24 school year. Thank you, and let's rock CTE and elevate the impact for our students, our community, and our schools.